Hello BookTube, this is going to be my first read-along summary for my reading of War and Peace. This is going to be Book 1, Chapters 1 to 6 inclusive. Just a bit of background for you. I have read this once before, about 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't think I remember very much of it at all. I'm looking to get a lot more out of it with this analysis and these read-alongs. So you're coming on the journey with me if you haven't actually read this before. These read-alongs will not be spoiler-free. This is meant to be a read-along, not a spoiler-free review. So if you are looking for a review to see if you want to read this, this is not what you want. And I will put that disclaimer at the start of every single read-along. So, that being said, I am using the Gutenberg project translation, so whichever one that you can download from there. The Gutenberg translation that I'm actually using has slightly different structure to the running that I posted from the Reddit site. I didn't write up the running. So this one I'm doing the first section, obviously being the first one, and it's actually in the Gutenberg one, it's chapters 1 to 9 inclusive of book 1. So to get started, I'm running a map of names, so I've got that up here. So I'll show you one of those, and these are just the names that I've come across so far in chapters 1 to 9. I'm doing this so I can keep track of the way Leo Tolstoy calls his characters all sorts of different names. Not something that's unusual for me as I'm a Game of Thrones reader, but it can be a bit confusing, and I found last time I was getting characters confused. This time I think I'm a bit more on top of it, having this running table going. So the summary of what's happened so far in the first 9 chapters, it opens with a small gathering, let's say a small gathering at Anna Pavlovna's, that was all very much the aristocracy and them conforming to the rites of passage that they have. Then we've seen an incredibly heated argument between the Prince Andrew and the little princess in front of Pierre, where Pierre is feeling incredibly uncomfortable and wants to leave. Once he does leave, after that incident has occurred, he goes straight to Prince Vasily's son, Anatole, and gets dragged off into some other debaucherous situation. So it was definitely a progression of loosening of the restraints of the aristocracy. Anna Pavlovna's residence, and the first person to show up is Prince Vasily. Now, Prince Vasily has some children, some of them good, some of them bad, and Anna Pavlovna starts offering to marry some of his less well-trained children off to try and calm them down a little bit. So we're introduced to those 2 characters. We are then introduced to the little princess, or the little princess, which is Princess Bolkonskaya. I apologize for any of these pronunciations. She's been recently married to the young Prince Andrew Bolkonsky, and Anna Pavlovna is planning to marry off one of Prince Vasily's children to her brother. So during this gathering of people in Anna Pavlovna's residence, we are also introduced to the character Pierre. Now, Pierre is the illegitimate son of another aristocracy figure. Pierre has been educated overseas and doesn't know exactly how to act within the refines of the social elite of Petersburg. And to add to this, he is also quite large and gangly, and we get the feeling that Anna Pavlovna, although she has invited him, has only invited him because of his connections. Now these connections are to the Prince Andrew and the little princess. He is also very good friends with Prince Vasily's son Anatole. Now Anatole is the black sheep of the family, costing 50,000 rubles a year or something along those lines to his father, Prince Vasily, and he is known for debaucherous nature and drinking and betting and playing cards and going to houses of ill repute. And we see this in the last chapter of this section, where although Pierre has promised Prince Andrew that he won't go round and see Anatole anymore, he's gone straight from Prince Andrew's house to Anatole's residence, and there he finds a whole rabble of different nationalities vying over a bear that is chained, and also trying to pull out a window so that someone can sit on the ledge of a third-story building and drink an entire bottle of brandy, I think it was, and for a bet without falling off. These people are not the same people, and it's supposed to be striking, I'm assuming, it's supposed to be striking that difference between the incredibly refined parlour of Anna Pavlovna and the den of iniquity that is Anatole's residence. So this has been really, I really, and this is part of why I'm rereading this, I really loved the social interactions within Petersburg in this book, and it's something that the intrigue that I love. It's the troop movements that bore me to sleep. Some of our main characters already coming up. So obviously I've spoken of Anna Pavlovna, and she's very self-deprecating and sort of that women's position within her society. Oh, if you her invite for them to come to her parlour that evening was along the lines of, if you feel the need to stay an evening with an invalid old woman, please come around. Do not trouble yourself if you do not wish to come. Of course everyone comes because it's Anna Pavlovna's invite. She serves up people, and I'm going to quote this one because it was beautiful, serves up as a specialty, choice delicacy, a piece of meat that no one who had seen it in the kitchen would have cared to eat. A cutting sort of comment on the aristocracy, and this was in reference to two of her guests, and she was giving them to the rest of her guests to say, look at this is what I can offer in the way of delicacies for you to feast upon. And she's very much a double-sided character, which women in this day and age had to be. They couldn't be seen as particularly manipulative, and they had to work in the underbelly of things in order to be able to gain their power. And especially someone like Anna Pavlovna, because she wasn't married. So she didn't have that power in order to change things through her husband. The descriptions of the little princess I found incredibly interesting. She was described as she was described as the most fascinating woman in Petersburg, which is kind of, I've seen it as kind of a dig against her, that she's maybe a little less than, she's a little bit more available. And it's interesting how it plays out between herself and her husband. And because her husband, Prince Andrew, is basically ignores her. For someone who is newly married, beautiful young, by all accounts, beautiful young pregnant wife, he has nothing to do with her, and he only lights up and starts animating himself when Pierre arrives at the party. So the only thing that differs in his view towards her is when Hippolyte, one of Prince Vasily's sons, starts paying her attention, and he's quite quick to dismiss the cuckold and get her out of there very quickly, which I found very interesting. You know, it's very much a time of when women were considered property, and yes, he doesn't want to pay her any attention, but he doesn't want anyone else paying her any attention either. The best bit description of her as being a very incredibly beautiful woman, and she was worried about her dress needlessly because it was only supposed to be a small gathering, is the light fuzz of dark down on her upper lip that never quite meets her lower lip, and it's an interesting idea from a time gone by when a mustache can be considered an alluring part of a woman's look. I'm not entirely sure what that's meant to say, but it's interesting. The other character that I really quite like, I actually really like Pierre, and he comes into this very structured place of Anna Pavlovna's, and he starts making waves. Him and the Viscount saying liberty and quality, high-sounding words which have long been discredited, which is an interesting thing to be said from the aristocracy of Russia. Pierre seems to be that well-meaning buffoon, as I've said previously. His appearance is large and bulky, bulging, picking up other people's possessions, not knowing the right court procedures. He didn't talk to the aunt correctly, etc. His opinions siding with Napoleon, where the Russians were going against Napoleon. He's going, no, I think they've done the right thing. He sided with Napoleon on the idea of the execution that they were talking about. He honestly believed that what the Russians were saying, that if left to their own devices, once they remove Napoleon, the French people will rightly come back to their king, and he really doesn't see that happening. So the next part that I will be reviewing in the chapter summary that I will link down below again will be the book 1, chapters 7 to 18. So obviously I'll be starting on chapter 10. There are the start of each chapter to help us know exactly where we're going to. I will work out where that is and post it in the comments below. If you would like to follow me in this journey, hit the subscribe button. If you like the way I'm going through this, give it a like, and I'll see you again soon.